Evaluation question 6. What technologies have you used during the preliminary project, research and planning and production, and what did you use them for? Section 1. Photoshop. Throughout all three tasks from research to planning, I've been using Photoshop to create my magazine. One of the main tools I used to create my final magazine was Photoshop. This was a very useful tool because it provided a wide range of features to help you make complex edits to your magazine that look professional and clean. An example of some of these being the eraser tool that lets you remove the background of images and then cut them out from the green screen and place them within your magazine. Similar to this is the lasso tool that makes a line around the image so you can crop it. One advantage of Photoshop is it allows you to make edits in greater detail and make more specific edits to your magazine. For example, you make more precise placements of text onto your page and then edit that text, creating shadows and opacity. I also use an online font site called DaFont, which allows you to find fonts that fit what you are doing. For example, I browsed through the serif fonts before I found the style for my magazine, which was called Fine Style. The disadvantage of using Photoshop is that I was very inexperienced and it took me a long time to be able to learn how to place text and resize it onto the computer. When I was using Photoshop, it was not working correctly and was not creating layers automatically, so I had to create them myself, which made the process take longer and I fell behind on my work. One edit I made was inserting text. To insert text, you click the text tool, which looks like this, you then scroll over to the image and click on it with the pointer. You then type out what you want to say and then click on the top arrow below the toolbar. If you want to resize your text, you then press Ctrl, then T, and then drag it while holding Shift to keep it in proportion. Photoshop is great for making edits to images, and images can be altered to fix faults Photoshop is great for making edits to images, and the images can be altered to fix faults in them. The Photoshops can be given a professional look when a standard camera is used. New artwork images can be created and edited. It is very easy to begin editing photos, for Adobe Photoshop helps you reduce the red eye and whiten teeth with a click of the button. You can adjust skin tones in people's pictures. However, using Photoshop also comes with some disadvantages. For example, it is very easy to use because of its many functions, but it can take a long time to learn, which can be frustrating and time consuming. One thing that helped me when learning to use Photoshop online was online YouTube tutorials, which you follow along with your computer to get the desired effect you want. Another disadvantage of Photoshop is that it is not free, and it is quite expensive when you have to pay. This is because you have to pay monthly for the software and cannot keep it on your home computer. Also, using Photoshop on my personal laptop was tricky because it takes up a lot of space on your computer and can often make it run slowly if your computer does not have the power needed to run the app. The next section is Google Drive. Another type of technology I used was Google Drive and its applications to assist in creating, saving and presenting my work. The first way I used Google was through creating a Blogger account, using my Google account, which is a way of presenting coursework, as each blog post is in order of when I created the work. Whoever is marking the coursework can see clearly my progression from the start of creating my product to the end. One example of how I use Blogger is when I have made a presentation on either Prezi or slides, I open a new blog and click the HTML button, and then I publish the web address into the section. I then click back on the compose button, and when people view my blog, they will see the presentation. There is no real disadvantages to Blogger, other than the fact when you are creating work inside a blog post, the range of fonts and colours inside the blog are limited to often the way you format the blog post can be tricky. The next way I've used Google is through Slides and Google Word, which are online ways of making Word documents and presentations that where your work saves automatically and you never lose your work, which is a really good advantage for using those two types of the Google app. The only disadvantage to these apps is that they do not have the full functions like Word and PowerPoint would have, and you are not able to make the same product. The Google Drive itself is a great tool to assist in your work because it allows you to save your work online so you can access it from anywhere as long as you're connected to an internet connection, which was great for me because it allowed me to pick up wherever I left off on a piece of work and access it from my tablet or my laptop or the computers at school. However, the only downside for this being that you cannot access it when you don't have the internet, meaning you may not be able to access your work if your internet goes down or you're in a place with no internet. Another useful feature of Google Drive is that you can save your work with other people to get that you can share your work with other people to get feedback you need. For example, I use Google Sheets to create a questionnaire and ask my audience what they wanted in my magazine, which allowed me to tailor my magazine to those responses. The next section is the DSLR and lighting. A DSLR is a digital single lens reflex camera which I use to take all my shots in my magazine. The first thing I realised when using a DSLR is that they take very high resolution images, which is a great advantage when you want to get good quality pictures. The next thing I realised is that the pictures take quicker, meaning you don't lose the shot you're waiting for, because you're not waiting for the camera to capture the picture in the moment you want. Another good advantage of using a DSLR is that it has a viewfinder, meaning you can see the image through the camera that the camera is going to take with your eye before you take a picture, which ensures more accurate pictures. Also, because I was shooting in low light conditions, because the camera has a very good sensor, I did not pick up any light noise when I was taking photos, which gave my photos a clear professional look. When first using the DSLR, I found its settings very difficult to operate because they were very detailed and took me a lot of time to understand, which I did not have. For example, when I was taking my photos, I found that the camera was picking up too much light. However, I found it very difficult to change the brightening settings. Because I was using such a specific style of lighting, this did not matter much. The style of lighting I was using was called chiaroscuro, which is an Italian term which means light and dark, and basically refers to the high contrast and light / dark style that you see in my pictures. For example, in my picture, half my model's face is in a bright warm light, and the other half is in shadow. I achieved this using a high key light in the back of my model's head, which lit the back of the head, meaning the head would not get lost into the black behind. And then I used a fill light on one side of the model's face to light it. However, the side that was not lit ended up being very dark, which meant I had to use another key light to light the dark side of the face, therefore it not being hidden. The next section is Prezi and Powtoons. Another type of technology I used was an online presentation software like Prezi and Slides, which are both websites that allow you to create PowerPoint presentations on there for free. These sites both have highly creative and very different ways of using their software. For example, there are an array of animations, and also you can choose from a preset PowerPoint, or you can build your own PowerPoint from the ground up. The only disadvantages of using this technology is that it's very time consuming, and some of the features you have to pay. InDesign. For one of the preliminary tasks, I was asked to recreate a magazine cover of Eminem on the Rolling Stone magazine, using a designing software that was very new to me called InDesign. When I was creating the Eminem cover on InDesign, the first thing I noticed about the software is that it has a lot of text editing features, which can be very helpful when looking to create a specific type of font. When putting text into a file on InDesign, the first thing you do is click on the text symbol, which looks like a large T. And then you go onto the page and draw an appropriate text box for the size of the text you want, and then you begin to enter the text much like you would on Word. You can use the bars at the top of the program to change the font sizes and shape to see if it's bold or italics. You can also type in a line by selecting the line tool and drawing a line wherever you want on the page, and then you click on the right text icon and select type on a path. One disadvantage of InDesign is that it has little to none photo editing capabilities, and you cannot edit photos within the program. And you would have to use something like Photoshop to import the images into InDesign. If I was going to do this project again, I would probably use some sort of combination of Photoshop and InDesign, because then I would have a larger range of tools at my disposal. In future assessments, I would like to use film equipment because I do not have much knowledge in the use of film cameras, but however, I think I would create some very professional looking products. Alongside this, I would also like to use video editing software because there are a lot more edits and animations I could do on video editing, which may be a lot more interesting and creative. Also, with video editing, you have to work alongside the sound to create one better piece. I would also like to extend my knowledge of Photoshop and creating edits on a magazine because it's such a big piece of software and I have not had time to do all the edits I could have done if I knew how to use them. Finally, I would like to improve my knowledge of the DSLR because I struggled to change the settings on the camera and to use it how I wanted and get the most out of the camera.